Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's our chess show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and we have today our distinguished guest, International Master of Chess, Professor Ken Regan. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Thank you very much for having me again. I'm back in my
Always,
office again.
always our pleasure. And so there are a lot of continuation of all the strong online tournaments. And there was actually published, from what I understand yesterday, extremely interesting interview Kramnik gave to Caruana and Chirilla. And we will discuss it at length next week for sure. So we will see not only the complete interview, but also the reaction, commentaries, opinions, and many other things. But interview is quite interesting. That the main thing, what I can tell you, is that Kramnik had almost a mathematical model of expected results of various players, and he is taking. He's taken an example when, say, a grandmaster of, say, 2500 level, and he took five top people in chess. Four people he took naturally: Carlsen, Nakamura, Caruana, Grishchuk, who is a very, very strong blitz player, because there is only blitz discussion about blitz play. And he joined that group as number five, which he admitted that he is not playing blitz on the same level as these four people, but his level of play generally and understanding of chess is still at the highest level. And although he's not using pre-move, that is an important part of especially 1 minute bullet games. And what he noticed, for example, this 2500 player, what level he expected of him to play? He's taking a level of this top GMs like Carlsen, Nakamura, and so on, as 90, although sometimes they're playing even at the level of 93, and 100 is the top. So 93, even sometimes 94 or so.
He's using the CAP score on chess.com.
Absolutely, yes. He told us that. So he's taking, okay, so 90 is approximately a level of these players. And then he's analyzing these grandmasters of 2500 games against Carlsen, Nakamura, approximately the same number of games. And he noticed that only 3 games out of 100, in case of Nakamura, 4 games, they're playing on that level of 90. All the rest are playing at a much lower level. What's interesting though is that when the same grandmaster 2500 plays against Kramnik, his level is becoming 27. 27 games out of 100, he's playing of 90 or higher level. And what he's trying to say is that it is very suspicious if somebody will play several games of 90 and over against Carlsen and even Nakamura, but it's nothing so bad about it if he's playing the same thing against Kramnik, and not 3 or 4 games, but 27 games out of 100. He's playing on a level of 90 plus. And so then he's talking about that if chess.com, a leading platform, would like to provide a fair play for all, they definitely have to find and ban, and very seriously, especially when it comes to money tournaments. Even the title uses, we're not talking about millions of dollars, but we are talking about $10,000-$20,000 or so on. So when they're taking the prize, they're taking money of the pocket of the other contender who would have got this prize if that player wouldn't cheat.
Sure. Now, Well,
So the point is whether these prizes have to be returned to chess.com and provide them with the legitimate.
you need proof for that. And of course, what you've described to me is not even able to become proof. Now, I
So
do.
there is no proof period then.
Well, that's the
That's
point.
needed.
Well, so what I need to get first of all is the sample of games that Vladimir Kramnik used for his study. So that's the number one thing. Then I need to analyze them in my way. As soon as he mentions caps, that's a red flag, because in fact, caps has flaws that are very obvious. I'll show the page when I go into presentation mode. Chess.com know this. They promised me they would revise it. They did make an announcement that they were rolling out caps 2, but they never finished it. Caps, by the way, is not the chess.com cheating detection system. That's a multifaceted and sophisticated system with a different name.
It's more statistical system rather than.
It's multifaceted. It's named after a multifaceted Italian fishing machine. So CAPS is just meant to be a quick yardstick. The number one thing is CAPS does not show you the error bars, which are which are huge on any given game. So you do need a lot of games, and I will say 27 games is certainly not enough.
No, it's 27 out of 100, and in some cases 100.
Out of 100. Okay, well, yeah, it depends on the strength of the signal. So I'll have to go and analyze those 100 games my own way, and I'll be able to say something more definite. I have not had. I only learned about this new podcast from Twitter last night. It was my birthday. I have university things going on. So
happy birthday, Ken, by the way. Okay,
Ken,
to be fair, I have announced that we are going to discuss it next program. So
that's right.
Let's now move on to games that you could show us today.
Kramnik, what?
Is it some games that you would like to show us?
Well, some games that I would like to show. I'm sorry. Yes, there is one game in particular that I would like to show. So to pick up from what you said at the very beginning, the two events that have been most of my attention are two youth events. One in India, sponsored by Tata Steel, the Asian Junior Championship, and the European Youth Championship in Mamaia, Romania. And I'm going to go there first. So let me go into presentation mode, because one of the people who started attracting press even before this began. Okay, so I'm going to share my whole browser window.
Okay.
Okay, let's say I had to find it because I have lots of things here going on. Oh, okay, yeah, it has to be this one. Okay, so is Amar Elham, or Elham Amar, I should say, is his name, from Norway, up and coming new player. And I'm going to show you his win in round 7 of the under-18 section of the European Youth Championship.
It's fairly strong tournament.
Yes, strong tournament. Yeah, he's not leading, actually. The leader after round 8 is Arsene Davtyan, brother of Artur Davtyan, and I'm forgetting the other Davtyan sibling.
Wow.
So, and it was Artur Davtyan who had a meteoric result in the European individual at some point. But I want to show this game because this game has a very curious theme that I dreamed of as a kid. So I like the end game, was rather unique about that. And I like the idea that I might be winning in the end game after only 5 moves. And in this game, Elham Amar proves my theory. Okay, so this is a textbook illustration of how to win a game with the structure you get after 5 moves. So it's a Caro-Kann, and black plays the knight f6 move. Okay. And now black can take with the G pawn, and we get a very complicated, enterprising game. But black plays what was advertised as a very simple way to equalize the position, take with the E pawn, and now you will have free play for your bishops and open files. Exchanges will occur. However, what this creates is a structure that is a mirror image of what you get in some variations of the Ruy Lopez, including the Berlin especially, is that white has a 4 versus 3 majority on the queen side. Black's 4 versus 3 is hobbled and cannot make a passed pawn. Okay, white can block these 2 F pawns. And moreover, unlike what often happens in the Ruy, there is not a compensation of having the 2 bishops against bishop and knight. So I, dreaming of myself as a great endgame master, would say, yeah, okay, I'll expect to win with optimism after 5 moves. Well, of course, there's a lot of complication between thinking of the plan of advancing your queenside pawns, especially your D pawns, and being able to execute it. And black does get good and free play for his pieces. But here is a game where white executes. So this move, bishop E3, first of all, is supporting the center, and it's also restraining what is black's only available pawn break in this position. That's the C5 pawn break. Okay, but the players are just going to develop their pieces to good squares for a bit. And this knight move is also very savvy. It has several ideas, but one of them is that it defends the F4 square, so the other way black can get activity is to advance the F pawn to F5 and F4. Okay. Now this looks like black is hanging a piece. It's an elementary tactics thing to see why this move is not hanging a piece. White just castles out. The reason why it's not hanging a piece is that black could recover it with check and takes on F5, and that would in fact give black the advantage on the king side of good squares for his queen. So white just castles, okay, and now black's queen can support the bishop, but white is not going to take on F5 because white would like to get the tempo to have his own queen become active. Okay, so now white has started advancing the queenside pawns. Now white wants to force black to take on D3, but black declines that and brings the bishop back. And now white, of course, has to stop black's knight from coming into B4. Okay, so now white's strategy is very clear. White is going to build up on the queen side while restraining black's from getting activity on the king side. Okay, so built up in the center. Now the knight moves. So white has judged that the plan of F5, F4 is not as difficult to meet. And now black plays a lashing out move. Okay, so black is hoping to do analogy to a minority attack is a little bit facile. Black is trying to weaken white's pawns before they can advance on united front. And white joins the fight, okay, with a move whose aim now is to say that I am going to get better squares on the queen side because I have a rook on D1, and even though maybe at this point I'd like to play this other rook to C1 and I can't, it's still the case that I'm going to get control of center squares after trades faster than black will. Okay, but there's also...
Should black just capture a pawn on C4, and I think there will be no difficulties after that.
Well, let's see what the engine does say that this is completely equal. Of course, you don't know that it's completely equal, and the engine says to do exactly what you want. Oh, I see your point. So your point is that white cannot capture with the bishop on C4. Okay. So never mind the engine thing is going to swing. Now here's something interesting. Black has the very rare pawn square in this position.
Mhm.
Okay, so white now, so white does have this is the move that white has to have seen. So this is very nice. It pins black's c pawn and is going to recover the other c pawn on c4. It pins the c6 pawn, recover the pawn on c4, and let's just see. All right, so maybe the one flaw.
Is it the knight b5 possibility?
Let's see. Knight b5. I take on c6. What's going on here?
Take on c3.
And I'm going to take on d7 and get your rook on.
Exactly. Okay, it doesn't work. I'm so sorry.
That doesn't work. But it says here the only move that keeps equality for black is this. And now, okay, so the engine judges that black has equality here, but I don't know. I got a pawn on c6. Your a pawn's going to fall. So if I'm playing this as a player, I think this is really good for white.
Agreed.
Okay, so I mean, obviously the engine is fair to disagree, but okay. Anyway, so black did not capture on c4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so black instead played bishop e5, really trying to mix it up. I must say I don't see what the point of that move is. So now, I meant to say, maybe the one point of this move, while maintaining tension, is that white has a very dynamic positional threat here. Having played d5, the positional threat is c5 followed by d6, locking in a powerful protected passed pawn. Mind you, that's exactly what we're going to see. So maybe the point of bishop e5 is to prevent c5 from coming with tempo while maintaining tension. But and what the engine points out, though, is that white can get what he wants just by playing the moves in the different order. So I really don't understand what black thought he was doing in this position, because this is going to be very similar to what happened in the game. Okay, so anyway, white didn't play that. White played d6. White inverted the order of moves. Okay, now the flaw in this is supposed to be that black can play bishop takes d3. Okay, take that, and then come out with the knight to b5, which is at least doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because now maybe white's d pawn is a little vulnerable. Black's pieces are optimally attacking it. So, but black did not come up with that. Instead, guy Levin played the knight to a generic central square, but it's not challenging the d6 pawn. Okay, so now white, there we go. So in just 12 more moves from move 5, when I said that white could establish a winning endgame, there we have it. Now, it's not just the engine of Val, it's that white now has a really solid advantage. And it doesn't matter if black is going to get a little potential activity. Okay, so long as black isn't delivering checkmate, and clearly he's not, whatever activity black will get will eventually be neutralized, and then this pawn on d6 will be a bone in the throat and will basically establish white as winning any reduced endgame. I don't even think black can hold a generic rook endgame in this position. Simply because king and pawn endgames are lost, white can oppose rooks, and black can't prevent white's rook from coming to e7.
Yeah, almost any endgame is lost due to the d6 protected posture. So it's impossible to use it.
Yeah, so now white just has to execute. Okay, so black captured that knight. I don't see even why black even wanted that knight. That knight was not doing anything threatening to the black position, or taking it as not allowing black to gain any square that I can see in this position. So the black retreated. This is resignable for black, frankly. But let's just see how white finishes it off. Okay, so white plays a4. So that's already a more ambitious move than b4, which is actually b4 is what the computer is recommending. So, but this is going to say, I'm going to actually give you a terrible choice. Either you're going to allow me two connected passed pawns, or I'm going to expose your A pawn as a weakness. My B pawn is a weakness, but your knight is not participating in the battle on the queen side, whereas my bishop can go to d4 and defend my B pawn. Then I can gang up on your A pawn. So, and you'll see it is, in fact, pretty much exactly what happens. So black took with the rook. If you took with the pawn, then you're allowing white to, well, white just crashes through with c6 and d7 already queening. So, okay, so black has to take with the rook. Now white, ooh, yes, this is nice. So this is a nice tactic. So black probably really had to just retreat the rook. But well, rook d5 is the best move. But this is a nice tactic. And so white, if black takes the queen, then white will take black's rook and have the two connected. So now white won that pawn and guarded the rook at the same time. So now we've got a queen ending where black is just down a pawn. And although queen and knight usually cohere better than queen and bishop, this position really just doesn't matter. White just plays to restrict black a little. So this now black can't take the bishop because of checkmate on d8. Now black can't take the bishop for an even more instructive reason. White queens the c pawn. What c pawn do you mean? Well, the c pawn that I mean is this c pawn, and then queen on the next move. Okay, so white is just coming after black in this position. Now because black's king guarded d8, white moved the bishop. And now this dislodges black's knight from its only good square, capture back. Now we come in, and this effectively traps black's knight. So nice little combination to finish it off. And black gave up.
Very interesting game.
Yes, yes, a very powerful game by the Norwegian. So the current standings. So now, whoops. No, I went to the wrong page. Okay, here it is. Games of standing. So actually, there's something. Valentin Prokofiev. I think this is a mistake by Chess24. They must have entered a game twice. So I should go to chess results to look at the standing.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah. There's actually, yeah. You know what? This is a little bit wrecked up, and that's a concern for me because I am screening this tournament. Now, let me just address one point. This is the article from 6 years ago when CAPS was released, and there are some good points about CAPS, but I just want to point out that here is a table of how CAPS relates to chess level, and it's actually it's more compressed. The scale is more compressed, and in fact, what CAPS was partly intended to resemble is the United States grade point average, where if you think of 94 as being an A, then a master player, 20, but closer to 2,300 than 2,200 would get an A. Okay. And if you think of 80 as a C, well, then a C player in USCF parlance is the one getting a C grade. I actually use a steeper scale in my courses, but that's a different matter as the old typical scale. The floor of this scale actually is the quality of randomly played chess or a suicide chess, which is much the same thing. But the real thing is when you plot this, if you ask, where does this go over 100? Well, look, 92, 94, 96, 98 at 2,500, 100 at 2650. So this doesn't make sense. This scale, the way it's represented, is linear with the numbers that you see here fairly closely, but it tops out at 2650. So it's supposed to round over. It's really supposed to be a logistic curve, but it doesn't. And in fact, I weighed in with something that could be another discussion for a show. And this is the Jeff Sonas proposal to revamp the rating system. So this is the blog that I co-write, the Girls Lost Letter blog with distinguished Professor Richard Lipton, Emeritus of Georgia Tech and Princeton. Mm-hmm. So Jeff Sonas's proposal, I now very strongly support this proposal. It only solves problems below 2,000, but it fits hand in gloves with problems above 2,000 that I've been talking with for a while. And it answered a riddle that I had posted in an article in 2019, which is when my first papers came out, quantities such as percent agreement with the computer look strongly linear. But I was only using data from 1600 to 2700 because in the year 2010, 2011, that was all the reliable data you could get. Now we have a lot more data, both at the elite level and of the weakest levels. So, and here, as measured by FIDE ratings, it's clearly not linear, it's a curve. But the question is whether it should be a curve. And what Sonas says instead is that this should be a line down to 2,000. And these ratings are off because of other issues in the rating system. The rating system has become stretched out, too stretched out below 2,000. And here's Sonas's evidence, which is that weaker rated players are scoring higher than the theory of the rating system says they should. If you apply Sonas's fix, then things are pretty close. But there's another element that Sonas mentions, but doesn't bring into his analysis, and with him and a statistician, data scientist in Chicago, where we started doing this now, is that a lot of strong young players are very much underrated because their ratings were frozen by the absence of in-person chess and the pandemic. So Sarayu Vopula, actually Vopula Sarayu, made waves when she beat 2,400 players in Pontevedra with an 1845 rating. But my formulas were already estimating her up near 2,400, which she now has as a FIDE rating. And he has other evidence. But finally, the thing that convinces me that the answer is that it should be linear is that when I take what I think is the most realistic and extendable measure of quality, among simple ones, okay, which is playing one of the top 3 moves as long as that move is within half a point of optimum, then I don't get a curve. I get something that visually is more like a kinked line where the kink happens to occur near the magic number 2,000. And the correction for this kink line is almost exactly what Sonas proposes. Well, I get 335 instead of 400, but close enough. So the fact that I am convinced that these quantities should be linear means that chess.com to me is right to make this a linear table, but but there's something wrong with its fidelity at the top because it's crossing 100% at 2650, which makes no sense.
No.
So they've told me they that it intends to be a logistic curve which rounds over, and that's what I thought was the answer 5 years ago. I rejiggered my whole system to actually a cubic approximation of a logistic curve. But So a curve like that. But now I'm saying that what we need to do is apply internally the Sonus correction and keep it as a line.
Absolutely agree with you. I remember his brilliant stuff he published probably 10 years ago, if no longer, where he compared the strengths of all the leading chess players of all time.
Mhm.
And there are some brilliant thoughts in that. I think it's available on the internet. I think one can
Well,
find.
yes, there's the Guide Bracco study, which was done in a very preliminary manner. I've basically reproduced, with more in-depth analysis, more processing power, more games, but not differing in kind from their conclusions.
Yeah. Well, I think slowly chess.com, as a leading platform, there is nothing that is comparable to that. They should take probably more serious, even scientific approach to casual games, and especially Title Tuesdays and some other events. And Kramnik actually questions the idea that people at the very top will less likely to cheat than average players. Because he's himself is one of the top players. Still, he's not playing professionally anymore. He just enjoys game, but his level of play and his understanding of the game is still on a very, very high level. And just a few days ago, you remember his match with Hans Niemann, where he lost game in 2 moves. He played with the black e4, f6, and d4, g5.
Yeah.
And the result.
Happy with the internet's reaction to that original accusation, because the people, not me, who analyzed that game got it right. And a lot of the commentators got it right. A definite change from a year ago.
Yeah.
It looks like I'm going to be dragged in anyway now. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens by next week.
Ken, thank you so much for today's program. We'll see you same place, same time next week. Have a
Okay.
great week.
Yeah.
And one more time, happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much. 64, the chess birthday. Okay.
Great.
All right. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.